Thank you very much. Xavier Becerra, Chairman of the Democratic Caucus, proud to be joined by our Vice Chairman Joe Crowley today. We had a great caucus meeting where we discussed two very important issues, principally, actually three very important issues. We dealt with immigration and where we stand on immigration reform and the process. We discussed extensively the Farm Bill, and we also discussed this difficult to understand bill that would deny a woman whose health might be in danger a chance to save her life simply to do a vote on a bill that everyone knows is unconstitutional on abortion. And so we went through and had a conversation on all three of those subjects, and I must tell you that we're anxious. We're anxious to get to work and get things done. We're disturbed that it's been 169 days now since we began this year. And in those 169 days, we've only been at work 65 days. And in those 65 days, we have yet to have in the House of Representatives one bill that we could vote on that focuses on jobs, where we can try to expand the economy and try to work with the president to do all he's done to get this economy moving. Over 7 million jobs in the last 3 years created through no help of the Congress. And if we were just partnering with the president, can you imagine what we could be doing for all those Americans who are waiting to get back to work, waiting to be able to pay their mortgages on time, waiting to see this economy go back to where it has been in the past. And so we're here as Democrats ready to get to work. And the reason we discussed immigration reform and legislation today in our caucus meeting is because we're preparing for that debate on the floor of the House, because we fully expect that the American people should have an opportunity to hear their representatives deal with what is a very broken system when it comes to immigration and get it done and get it resolved. The people are so far ahead of the politicians when it comes to immigration reform, it's silly. For years they've been telling us, move on this. It's not rocket science. Beef up the border. Protect the workplace. Fix the system when it comes to legal visas, and deal in a tough but fair way with all those immigrants who are in this country who are trying to come out of the shadows. Democrats are being briefed by those of us who've been participating in these bipartisan negotiations, so our Democrats will be ready to debate and vote on immigration reform as quickly as we can get it to the floor, because it's time, after years, that we fix the system so we don't have to ever again tell the American public, here we go again, we have to fix a system. We hope to be able to do it right the first time. I mentioned that we've got this chilling partisan effort that will take place on the floor this week that cloaks itself behind the mask of unborn children and the issue of whether they or not they feel pain. And it's unfortunate that we risk the life of a woman simply to make a political point. And we hope that once again the American people see through this and recognize that rather than debate jobs bills, we're debating bills that we know for a fact are unconstitutional before they even hit the floor of the House of Representatives. Finally, the Farm Bill. We had a very robust conversation about that. Democrats recognize the importance of getting a farm bill passed and signed into law that's long-term, not just these short-term temporary deals, but a long-term deal that gives farmers in America the chance to be able to forecast where they can go and do it in a way that continues to allow the family farm to move forward in America. We also have concerns, of course, with the way the Republicans are treating nutrition, cutting services to families who are right now trying to make ends meet, cutting nutrition programs for people who are doing nothing more than trying to survive these days, working as hard as they can. And we don't think that there's a place here for cuts to nutrition at a time when we're talking about a farm bill to feed America and feed the world. Finally, I think it's important to note that we have a chance to do some things bipartisanly that could get this economy moving. We want to extend a hand to our Republican colleagues here in the House to say that when it comes to the budget, when it comes to big issues like immigration, gun safety, we're ready to go. We need a partner, and certainly what we should be doing is using the people's time on the floor of the House of Representatives to get things done, the important things, instead of bills that are unconstitutional, as we will see this week. With that, let me yield to our Vice Chairman, Joe Crowley.
Let me thank you, Chairman Becerra, for I think what was a very useful caucus this morning, learning more about the priorities of our Democratic caucus when it comes to the issues of immigration reform and the Farm Bill that we expect to have before us this week, and also a brief discussion on, again, another one-house bill, a proposal by our Republican colleagues to limit the access to health care for women in the United States, a bill that will go absolutely nowhere, and another opportunity for us to do less than we ought to be doing on behalf of the American people. We should be talking about job creation, get our economy going, and finding a solution to student loan interest rates that will double if nothing is done by the end of this month. Once again, we're spending an awful lot of time here on a one-house bill that will go absolutely nowhere. Once again, demonstrates the priorities of the Republican caucus. It's not to get a jobs bill passed. It is not to help improve the economy nor the lives of the American people. And that needs to change, and that's what the Democrats are about. So, Javier, I join in you in terms of your frustration. I think we all in the Democratic caucus are somewhat frustrated by the lack of productivity of the Republican caucus in bringing legislation to the floor that will go nowhere. Specifically on the farm bill, I join in the concern that is expressed by, I think, a majority of our Democratic caucus, overwhelming majority of Democratic caucus, in the $20.5 billion cut in SNAP and food stamps, the SNAP program. That will have a real impact on people's lives, but not in a positive way. This will, for the poorest amongst us, be really challenging. Hundreds of thousands of young children who will no longer be eligible for school lunch programs because of the change in the SNAP program. The millions of people in this country who have reduction in the ability to afford basic needs and sustenance and nutrition and nutrients and nutrition. We know the effect that this can have on young children if they're not getting the required nutrients they need to perform in school. And we also know the stress that this can bring to bear upon a family when they have to make really hard decisions at the checkout counter as to what they can and can't afford to buy, to eat, to sustain themselves. The stress that brings on a family is incredible. One that I've been fortunate not to have to know, and I'm sure most of my colleagues haven't had to know, but millions of Americans have to deal with every day. So we're looking to be constructive, to work with our Republican colleagues in Congress to get a bill passed that we can all agree with. But I think at this time that there are some major blocks ahead of us in terms of that bill. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chairman.
Questions?
Yes. Immigration bill. 2 weeks ago, the group of 8 became a group of 7. You said you had a deal. Still no bill. What's going on? Where are you at?
Let me see how I can answer this, because I think all of us believe that we need to get this done. We saw a little bit more than a week ago a measure put on the floor of the House through an amendment by Representative King to try to undo a program that's been very successful that was initiated by the President, the Deferred Action Program for the Dreamer kids, those who were brought to this country through no fault of their own, and have gone on to do great things, get accepted to some of the best universities, want to serve in the military. We had an amendment on the floor which would scrap the entire program for several 100,000 of these young Americans who signed up. And unfortunately, most every Republican voted for that. And you have to wonder what that signals. Now we're hearing that today Republicans in the House Judiciary Committee are going to mark up a bill that goes far afield to the right of what most people believe is an achievable fix for a broken immigration system. At some point, this does have a chilling effect on the ability to get real work done. If you continue to go to the deep end on the right, on some of these matters, our working group continues to meet. I believe this bipartisan group is intent on producing a bill, but I'm going to stop making predictions. I made my first prediction 2 weeks ago, saying that I thought within a week or two we would have a bill. I had refrained from making any of those kinds of predictions for several months because I didn't see us quite there at that point and those points. I did 2 weeks ago, I still do. It's just a matter of whether or not we'll be able to proceed. And I think at this stage, all of you who've had these sources off the record are on the spot to have those sources explain all those previous comments to you off the record. They were clearly off the mark as well as off the record. And so I think the most important thing to do now is give members a chance to get a bill out so we can begin the process to complement our Senate colleagues who've done, I think, a very remarkable job and a commendable job of trying to get a real fix to a broken immigration system done. The American people don't care what we do politically. Just get it done. And I think on immigration reform, the message is very clear. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you want this done. And so I hope that here in the House we can catch up with our Senate colleagues and get this done.
Republicans in the group of 7 backing off or slow walking it, or what?
Our group is meeting, our bipartisan group is meeting, and all of us have remained committed to getting a bill done. And so I see no reason why this group cannot achieve results unless, of course, there's a chilling effort or influence exerted on anyone to prevent that from being the case.
Since its inception in 2006 and in 2011.
That's it.
Now, in order
But is there a sense that GOP leadership in the House wants a real bill, wants to get this done? I mean, do you get the sense that they're really not that interested?
FISA court,
Everything I've heard from Speaker Boehner and several of us within the Hispanic Caucus, all of us within the Hispanic Caucus, have been given an opportunity to meet with the Speaker. Yeah, Speaker must have turned it off right now, the background noise. And so I think every signal I get from the Speaker, whether direct conversations with him or just from hearing what he has said, I think the Speaker wants to get this done. And I think he wants to get it done in a bipartisan fashion with as many Republicans. I think he'd like to get the majority of his Republican colleagues, and we'd like to get a majority of our Democratic colleagues. So if I had to guess, I'd say certainly that I think John Boehner, the Speaker, would like to get this done the right way, and I hope I'm right.
If I could just comment on that. I think this is the opportunity for the Speaker to show once again that we can do big things. The Congress is actually up to getting things accomplished. This is a big task, there's no doubt about it. But if the polling indicates anything, is that the American people expect us to pass a comprehensive immigration bill. And I think if other polling is accurate, then the Republican Party needs to be viewed as having been helpful in making that happen. If there is any opportunity for them to find success at the polls in the years to come, especially at the presidential level. So I think it's incumbent upon them to do this in a bipartisan way to get this bill accomplished. As I said, maybe more importantly for all of us here in Washington, to once again prove to the American people that when it comes to big and difficult issues, the Congress can step up and accomplish something.
I agree with that. Mike?
As recently as yesterday, Congressman Diaz-Balart is still blaming Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leaders for the absence of a deal so far. He's still pointing to that subsidized health care issue and saying Democrats are insisting on it and Republicans don't want it. What's your reaction to that?
Okay, again, respecting the conversations and negotiations that are going on among the 7 of us, and I want to respect a good friend, Mario Diaz-Balart, and what he says, but he's absolutely wrong. Let me repeat that. What he has said is absolutely wrong. One more time. What Mario Diaz-Balart said is totally untrue.
Not being a member of the 8, let me just say what Mario Diaz-Balart has said is absolutely wrong.
Yeah. Can I? Yeah. We've got to stop. This stuff about pointing fingers has to stop. We just got to get the work done. And I firmly believe that their leadership on the Republican side in the House wants to get something done. What it looks like for Republicans in terms of fixing the broken immigration system may be different from what it looks like for Democrats. But I just finished telling you, I really believe Speaker Boehner wants to get this done. I will tell you this. I know for a fact, I don't have to think or believe, I know for a fact that the Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, in fact, the Democratic leadership from Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, Joe Crowley, Xavier Becerra, and I would venture to say virtually the unanimous vote of our Democratic caucus wants to get this done. And so to try to point fingers doesn't get us anywhere. But beyond that, one of these days I can show you the documents that prove that Nancy Pelosi wants to get this done. And so let's stop with that and let's just get our bill out. We are essentially there. We should not hold up what I think could be a point where we can start bipartisanly. And so let's catch up to the Senate. I don't believe this, but the House, I'm saying let's catch up to the Senate. That's a new thing I don't want to get accustomed to.
Let me just also say that I think it's pretty much a matter of record. We know where their party stands on immigration reform. Despite that, they recognize politically they need to get something done. We know by the King Amendment and the overwhelming support to unfund or defund the President's executive order on DREAM. We know with the Gowdy bill that's going through the Judiciary Committee this week in terms of giving states the rights to enforce immigration law. That's a Republican, that's where they stand. Despite that, we know that they want to get this done for political purposes. We won't look a gift horse to the mouth in that respect. We would like to get it done because it's the right thing to do. Combine that together and maybe we can demonstrate that the House and the Senate can work to accomplish big things again.
Let me just, because I know Joe knows a number of our Republican colleagues who want to get this done because they think it's time to fix the system as well. But there's no doubt that politics, the political system, is putting pressure on all of us to get it done. But I think Dee's, and I think Joe would agree, there's ours as well, Republicans as well, who want to get this done for the right reasons, the right way. And there's a very sensible, pragmatic way to do this, so you don't have to go to the right edge or the left edge to get it done. We can navigate this down the middle, where you deal with the border. You know, enforcement is important. You deal with the workplace, so you don't have the magnet that attracts people to come to this country to try to take jobs. You deal with the fact that a lot of people have waited for a long time the legal way to get their visa to come in, and you shore it up so you can speed up the process and not have these massive waiting lines behind you. And then you deal with, in a rational, sensible, tough but smart way, with the folks who've been waiting in the shadows, working very hard all this time. And so take this right down the middle and you can get there. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, you say that this has to get done, and this, has to get done soon. My question is, how is the Democratic leadership trying to get this done? Are you willing to give out, certain, for example, that amendment that says you're giving states a right to enforce immigration laws? How do you stand on that? How does the Democratic leadership?
Okay. As we keep saying, we can have a bill that will work, or we can have a bill that will look good politically. If you're trying to put a message out there or put optics out there that fool the American people, you can do all sorts of things. But if you want to have a bill that works when it's on the ground, being implemented so that our border is enforced, our workplace is enforced, and we have a sensible way of knowing who's in the country and who's going to become an American citizen, tax-paying American citizen, then you need a workable solution. Now, I think Democrats are willing to consider anything that works. But when you start to slip into and fall into this area of now just politics and optics, no. So without responding to any particular point you made, if it will work on the ground to improve our system, to make it work right so Americans feel comfortable about who's coming into the country and who's leaving, then I think we should be open to it. But the moment you start doing things to punish, to look harsh, to make it look like you're doing something when really you're not, except spending a lot of taxpayer money, that's when you got to jettison those things and get it done right.
I would only just add that I'd be very concerned about any law that would allow local law enforcement to engage in the type of activity that would be suggested under the Gowdy bill for the purposes of enforcement of immigration. I think it's a complicated issue in many respects, but I first of all think it's the responsibility of the federal government. This is Joe Crowley speaking. The federal government to enforce the immigration laws, and it's not up to local law enforcement, nor ought to be up to local law enforcement to do it. That's my personal opinion.
Wow, you guys are on immigration, huh? Yes.
En español, por
Sí.
favor. ¿Cómo usted responde a ¿tiene ahora, tendrá ahora el mismo peso?
You guys all got that right. Okay, so get ready. I'm gonna respond. Este es un asunto complicado. No se resuelve en un día. Hemos visto que años pasan donde no hace nada el Congreso para mejorar la situación. Así que lo que importa es cumplir, no dar la percepción de hacer progreso. Tenemos que recordar que hace un año los republicanos estaban hablando de la autodeportación de los inmigrantes. Ahora decir que van a hablar de darles un camino a la ciudadanía es difícil para muchos republicanos. Pero para cumplir una reforma completa, justa, necesitamos un voto bipartidista. Y por eso es tan importante tratar de trabajar con nuestros colegas republicanos en vez de nomás atacar. Y yo tengo esperanza de que vamos a poder cumplir. He visto en este grupo bipartidista en la Cámara de Representantes que los miembros en una manera bipartidista estamos trabajando duro para cumplir, para presentar un proyecto de ley donde todos los miembros del Congreso, republicanos y demócratas, pueden votar en favor de esta reforma. Así que ojalá en el próximo futuro presentamos un proyecto de ley aquí en la Cámara para complementar el trabajo que han hecho en el Senado un grupo bipartidista de senadores.
Entonces, ¿sugiere usted que ha sido sus colegas republicanos que han sido el atraso para presentar este proyecto de ley?
Yo no, este no es tiempo de echar culpa, de tirar acusaciones. Este es tiempo de cumplir. El pueblo merece una reforma que trabaja. Es tiempo, nuestra economía merece una reforma migratoria que trabaja. Y en vez de tirar golpes, es tiempo de cumplir. Y se puede hacer. Yo tengo fe que este es el año que podemos cumplir. Solo lo que necesitamos es un debate sano y el apoyo bipartidista de los que quieren ver esta economía trabajar, más empleos y mejor justicia para los inmigrantes. Thanks very much, folks. Oh, one more? Yes. Oh, God. I just responded to that.
When are you bringing it to the floor? When are you going to bring it there?
I just responded to that question in Spanish. No. Listen, I think it's past high noon. We could have done this a while ago. But the important thing is that we do it. And so while the clock continues to tick, so long as we keep at this in a bipartisan manner, I think we'll get there. The worst thing about the clock is if we try to do this with only one party. And so I think it's so important that this bipartisan group have a chance to complete its work and introduce a bill. I'm no longer going to say that I think we have a bill by X date, because I think it's too important to try to move this process to complement what the Senate's doing to get it done. I applaud the senators on the work they've done on immigration reform because they're listening to the American people. They're navigating a very difficult process, and they're getting something done, I hope to the point of having a vote on final passage, which is very strong. And if the American people see that, they'll get a sense that, yes, we really can do it, and I hope then that really stimulates the House of Representatives to get it done as well.